All right, so here with the man himself, Dave Stockbridge, we just came back from Queensland last week.
I'm still sweating.
Oh, man, it was so hot, wasn't it? It was so humid, it was ridiculous. Yes, we had the T-Series 2 on Australia Day in Harrisville. What an event, what an amazing whole thing that came together. The tournament, we had super matches, we had a whole bunch of stuff going on, and we had to battle some elements as well. It was
Indeed, and from what I understand, they had 10 inches of rain in Harrisville on the Monday before our event. So just a matter of 3 or 4 days before the event. So that's in part why it was so humid. I think we had over 90% humidity, and it felt like it was about 35 degrees for most of the day as well. So the athletes themselves, all credit to them, because competing in those conditions is quite oppressive, and they really gave it their all regardless.
Absolutely. It was funny seeing Taryn Broad, who had competed in a super match and then decided to enter the under 95s division as well.
Well, in his super match, though, he was 110 kilos. He'd lost that 15 kilos to get down to the 95.
Right. Just in sweat, absolutely. But he was struggling. Like, by the time it sort of got later on into the division, he was walking up to the table like, put his arm up on this. Okay. And then
just conjured up enough strength for a flash spin.
Yeah.
And some people have said to us, why Harrisville on this occasion? And quite simply, when we were planning out the event, one, we wanted to reward the loyalty of arm wrestling fans in Queensland, because we know there's several big clubs up there now. I think 7 clubs in total. So Queensland's a big arm wrestling state, and so we knew we had to prioritise Queensland and get them on the calendar nice and early. The other thing with Queensland, it's a massive place, and unlike, say, most population centres in Australia, it's kind of stretched out a little bit. So you've got a lot of arm wrestlers down on the Gold Coast, which is about an hour away from Brisbane, and then again Surfers Paradise is another hour or so further up the road. And so wherever we went, it seemed that we were going to be an hour away from someone. So we thought we'll make it an hour inland, and rather than go with that glitzy venue that we might have otherwise chosen, we thought we would reward a regional hotel who got behind us nice and early, who were planning big Australia Day celebrations, and who were keen to host the event, but also it's one of the oldest continuing trading hotels in Queensland. So been trading for 149 years, and two women there running the Harrisville, the Royal Hotel at Harrisville, and they love the idea of having the arm wrestlers over. So and we're rewarded with a great turnout.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was fantastic to have it there. I mean, to have Australia Day where, they put on the whole sort of smoked meats, and they had all these different festivities, and they had a band playing all day. I think that guy played literally like 14 hours straight.
I didn't hear him take a break.
There was like, by the end, there was like 2 people, and he's still playing it at full volume with as much passion as this was his moment.
God bless him. Yeah.
But it was fantastic to have it there. And as you're right, I mean, it was an hour. It was either, if we have it in Brisbane, everyone on the Gold Coast, it's an hour. We have it in the Gold Coast, Brisbane, it's an hour. So it's like, we'll put it here, and then that way it's an hour for everyone.
It's equally inconvenient for everybody.
That's right. Absolutely.
But it was great, and shout out to the ladies there at the Royal Hotel at Harrisville, who were fantastic guests, and we look forward to partnering with you again in the future. But AWET Series 2 is now in the history books. Some standout results. Lachlan Carpenter has emerged now as a real serious elite contender here in Australia after his performance, beating Ryan Bowen not once but twice. And cementing his position as one of the very top arm wrestlers in the country, and has now earned himself a super match with Ryan Bowen sometime in the next few months, but certainly it'll be Ryan Bowen's next match here in Australia.
Absolutely, yeah. It was incredible. I mean, he was staying with us at the Airbnb when we arrived, because he'd got there before we did. And just walking in and having seen him maybe 6 months prior to
No,
that.
not even in December.
Oh, was that all?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
only-
We saw him because T Series 1 was
course.
December the 11th, so
Yeah.
it's literally 6 or so weeks.
Wow, he looked like 30% bigger.
He was noticeably larger in that T section. His shoulders and
Yeah.
his traps and his upper arms. It was the first thing I mentioned to him as soon as I stepped out the car was, "Have you put on size?" And he went, "Yeah," kind of coyly,
15 kilos or something, wasn't it?
No, I think it was about 5 or 6.
Oh.
And but it looked like 15.
Yeah.
He was noticeably larger, and he's already a pretty big lad. So
Yes, yeah.
So I think weighing in at about 125 or so kilos, and in his biggest and most impressive shape. And he'd been really training hard in the lead up to T Series, and so his wins on the day were well rewarded.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the great things about what Lachlan did was he took the date and he's planned it and he's trained a schedule around, okay, that's the day I'm going to have peak performance. And did he ever? I mean, he walked into that tournament with some big names that he was going to be facing in the open weight division, including Ryan Bowen, who's currently number 2 and on a big win streak from international matches. King of India, King of Korea.
King of Hearts.
King of Hearts. That's right. Beating Gunter's Bykovs at the last T-Series as well.
Yep.
And, yeah, he managed to take him down not just one time, but twice. So
And quite convincingly.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
So I think there was a little struggle with the first, but by the time we got around to the second, there's certainly less of a struggle.
Yeah, there was the comment, I think he said, all day.
All day.
All day. And then somebody else said, and all night, as he was like already walking away. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Bit of a Joe Rogan reference, maybe. A big coming out for Lachlan Carpenter, who has been AWE loyal. He's been AWE 1, AWE 2. He's was at T Series 1, now T Series 2.
Yeah.
Walking away with the chocolates on this occasion, and at T Series 1 as well. He performed admirably and walked away with prize money there. So he's now our biggest winner of prize money, and on the weekend walked away with $1,200 cash in his pocket and flights and accommodation and everything all covered. So it was a good weekend out for Lachlan Carpenter.
Absolutely, yeah. Good time to be an arm wrestler if you're with the AWE.
Indeed. And that's what we're all about. AWE is about making arm wrestling go pro, and we want to see our athletes make a living out of arm wrestling, whether it's on the table or on social media, but we want to see our athletes making money out of the sport.
You know who else was the big winner of the day?
Oh, who?
SK.
SK
cleaned up.
He did very well, didn't he?
He did phenomenally well. He took out the under 80s division on left and right comfortably, sort of cruised through both those divisions and said, you know what, just put me down for the under 95s as well.
Yeah.
And ended up, I think it was third place.
Yeah.
So he got first place, $300 for both left and right, so $600, and then $50 for third place in the under 95. So $650 for SK.
Not bad. And these are the opportunities that we're providing for athletes, and we certainly hope it's not the only reason they come out, but we're glad that they do come out if they're there for the prize money.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure. And we're just going to bring up some of the results here, but we had some old favourites, an old guard of the arm wrestling world that
made their way out to Harrisville.
That's right. It's like, oh, hang on a minute, you haven't been here. Have you been training? What have you been doing? Oh, who is this guy? What's he do? So we'll bring up the heavyweight. So we're just looking at the under 80s division here. We had guys like Matty J, who is with the Gympie Grippers, lovely young man, and he did quite well in the under 80s division there. We had a whole bunch of amazing athletes that pulled with us as well. Alan Isaacs, Desmond Green Andrews, Joel Torini, Zhao Huang, which was...
Zihao,
yeah, which I think we had difficulty pronouncing.
Well, I think I've said that about 17 different ways on the day. So it would have covered it. I'm sure I would have got it right at some point. But yeah,
the combination of that one was correct at the start, but you got the second one wrong.
Yeah. And apologies to all athletes whose names I might have gotten wrong, but it was indeed a fantastic performance by both SK and Zihao, who really see how it, for me, came out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he did a fantastic job. And the great thing about it, you can see all the matches up on the AWE T Series YouTube channel.
Yep.
They're all there, ready to go. And it's fantastic to go back and be able to watch that. And it flows very quickly, very nicely. A lot of me shouting "go" over and over in a row, which my family found hilarious.
Yeah, it's one of my highlights as well. Yeah. So, and another athlete that kind of emerged out of the ether was Milos.
Yes.
So Milos Popovic, who's been around arm wrestling for some time and turned up on the day. And it's always difficult if you've not been on the competitive table for a little while, and because no one knows really what to expect, and as an athlete, you don't know whether the level shifted. But Milos came and delivered, and arguably also beat Ryan Bowen.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's
the
true.
very dubious slip, which
yeah.
you can see on Ryan Bowen's channel right now, where I think Ryan both had his elbow up and slipped from very definitely a lost position, maybe.
I like how he played it off, because as he slipped and it's like his hand, they shot apart so fast. It's like, unless you had a slow motion camera, you could see what's going on. But it was like, bang, and he's just turned and walked away.
Like nothing happened.
Away. Oh, no, that's definitely a slip there. He didn't stand there going, what was that? He was like,
and you can see SK looking at it for a moment, because he was the reffing at that stage. I mean, yeah, maybe not. We'll just let that one go.
Yeah.
Milos didn't seem too upset, so we'll just let that one slide. But when it got to straps afterwards, it was all Ryan after that. Yeah.
But
So-
it was great to see guys like Milos, who I haven't met before, or haven't seen perform before, and on Right Arm he ended up coming third. And it's one of the things is I reached out to him to try to give him the prize money after, and he said, "Look, don't worry about the prize money. I do arm wrestling because I love it. I'm not in it for the money." But
then we said, "Look, it was $50,000." And he
said, hang on a minute.
Changed my mind on that whole thing about being noble about competing in arm wrestling, and some people again who on the competitive tables we haven't seen before. So we had Big Ben Fa'ilo.
Yes.
I think is the best way to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
We had Adam Stevanic,
Yes.
who came out as well,
Yeah.
which was great to see. Of course, Ethan Tunstall, who's been an AWE regular and improving all the time, isn't he? And Jacob Tuxworth as well.
Yep.
These young athletes, every time you see them, they've made another gain, haven't they? It's
right.
It's not incremental either. Rickson Pettybourne.
Yep.
Big athlete,
Big
strong,
guys,
strong
massive,
young men.
massive
I tell
guys that turned up. But there was, I think, 3 or 4 guys that I said, I don't know if we've got a t-shirt big enough for you. We go up to 5XL.
We've got the 5XLs as well. Yeah, some big lads there, and of course Torben. Torben was back, so great to see Torben on the table as well, and giving it his all, and very, very strong on left arm as well, and served to challenge some of those guys that are very, very highly regarded. So he really came back to the table and proved that he's a name that we need to keep in the mix now.
Absolutely, yeah. I think he has had a baby recently, so he's been sort of doing the father.
So he's a trans athlete.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, he had the baby.
No, he didn't. Oh, he was a partner. Yes.
Partner had the baby.
Yeah.
I think they were there on the day.
They were there.
All right. Yeah, there you go. But
you can never assume these days. Yeah.
Oh,
when you mentioned.
But so he's sort of taken a little bit of time away from the arm wrestling scene to do fatherly duties. But
he must be just carrying that child with his left arm
just
all the time,
just
pronated,
the whole time.
always cupped.
That's right. Yeah, so he had some wars with Bowen Contado on the left arm, and some slight little back and forths after each match, and
yeah, there's a little rivalry forming there, isn't there? So and of course, Bowen was on the tables competing in the tournament. After having his big super match with Brett Coots.
Yeah, absolutely.
So actually, both athletes that had super matches with Brett were on the table shortly after. Unfortunately, Brett, though,
Ooh, should we talk about the matches now?
Let's maybe have a bit of a chat about the matches, eh?
Right.
Yeah.
So we kicked things off with Taryn Broad, about 95 kilos, taking on Brett Coots, the Australian arm wrestling legend. I think we're sitting around 112, something like that.
112, yeah, and 112, 115 thereabouts, and just one of the most muscular human beings I've laid my eyes on in person. Like, you see bodybuilders on Instagram or on TV, and you watch the Mr. Olympias, but when they're standing right there in front of you, and he had to take off his shirt. I don't think he wanted to take off his shirt, but he had to take off his shirt on one occasion.
People took it off for him.
Yeah. And my goodness, he's and he's 45 years old, I believe, as well. I've never seen a 45-year-old human being look like that. It's just, I mean, a real example of discipline, hard work over a long period of time, but also still really focused. You know, he was saying, I've still got bodybuilding goals. It's like, surely by now you've achieved them all, because, I mean, but he's still got areas he's working on and things in amongst his arm wrestling training as well. And when people say, oh, you can't do bodybuilding and arm wrestling at the same time, well, you know what? In Brett Coots, we have an example that you can.
Absolutely.
He's just a fantastic example of what it is that you can do with a whole lot of hard work and dedication.
Absolutely, yeah. Seeing him in person was just like, oh, okay, is this guy just going to crush everyone here? And even his arms, when I'm editing the footage, you know, when he's gripping the peg, and it's like this huge muscular ass. Oh, God. Good luck, Taryn.
So we had let's set this one up a little bit. So Taryn Broad, young South Australian, 29 years old, been around arm wrestling for some time now, 7 or 8 years. He's been the top guy in South Australia, for excluding, say, Gunter's, Bykov's, of course, and he's now former South Australian. No, we'll keep it. But Taryn really hasn't had much competition on the tables in South Australia for some time, so he's really had to look interstate to find a challenge. Performed at AWE 1 and was up against Josh Barker and comfortably took care of business there. In a bit of afterpull with Adam Laura on that day, felt he had a little something. That led to a super match with Adam Laura, who's been regarded as one of the top super heavyweights in the country for a very, very long time. Beat Adam Laura in a bit of an upset, a bit of a surprise to the arm wrestling world. And then all of a sudden the world had woken up to the Taryn Broad threat. Taryn, in the meantime, has been chipping away and probably put on another 5 or 6 kilos as well, and had his sights set on another top 10 opponent, which for Taryn means competing against a super heavyweight. Yeah. And he's a sub-95 competitor any day of the week and can comfortably compete at 85 kilos.
Yeah, he used to compete under 80s.
Under 80s, yeah. So for Taryn, it's not just a big step up in terms of names and rankings. It's a whole different category of human being, and in Brett Coots, it's different again. So Taryn had a deficit there of about 20 or so kilos to make up, and a whole lot of horsepower that comes with that. And I mean, this one really turned out the way that a lot of people thought it would, in that it was a hook war, wasn't it really? And for the first time in most people's memory, with the exception of Lachlan Adair, Taryn Broad was able to stop Brett Coots in a hook, going straight to the pad. And so enjoyed a few moments there where he was able to keep Brett away from surging, and at some points looked like he might have had just enough to be able to come through, but wasn't able to get there. But Taryn's got a lot of positive points to take away from that match with Brett Coots. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. What a match. And yeah, you're right. It went straight into the hook as we were expecting. Brett's strength is just next level, and it's almost a little bit unbelievable to me, because a couple of weeks prior to that, I had done some training with Taryn, and he was in a hook position, and I was trying to sort of, let him really work. And I had both my arms on him trying to stop him from pinning me. And the amount of force that he was able to generate and push through, he pinned me with me using both arms. And I remember thinking, like, the level of strength I would need to have to be able to stop that is maybe 2 or 3 times what I have now. And I've been training for 23 years at the gym.
So after 50 or 60 years, you might get there.
Yeah, maybe. I was like, how the hell would anyone ever stop that? That is absolutely unbelievable. And then the man, Brett Coots, proved how you do it. Yeah. And it's just the fact that he could, it was sort of what he always does, which is, you know, he's very relaxed, and off the get-go, he sort of allowed that position to take place, but just held Taryn there and then smiled, you know. And I'm like, how the hell is he holding that? And then, you know, when he was ready, he's just driven through. And in a couple of the rounds, he managed to drive all the way straight through. And then in a couple of the rounds, Taryn did stop him, and it took 2 or 3 surges for Brett to get through. But I just was in sort of disbelief a little bit that he was able to hold that.
Yeah.
Knowing how much force there is, and it's just like how strong he must be to be able to do that, because I know how strong Taryn is in that position. So yeah, an absolutely amazing effort from Brett Coots, and it was a little bit mind blowing. It was like, for me personally, just knowing the level of strength and seeing it happen was like, how is someone that strong?
Yeah, it is amazing. It is amazing. You know, we are seeing superhuman strength on display whenever we see these athletes collide on the table. And now I can't unsee Brett Coots having those moments on the table where he looks very relaxed, and he almost looks off and catches somebody's eye and gives them a wink, and then he's back to it. Oh yeah, I'm arm wrestling. And then it's just so casual, and you can almost go, yeah, I've had enough. And then he just rolls his arm over. Okay, maybe not yet. I'll wait it out. What else is going on? And then. Oh yeah.
Right, yeah.
You're still here. Right. All right, okay. All right. Well, we better get this out of the way so I can go back to my afternoon.
Look more relaxed, and he's holding the
There's
hardest
no grimace
thing ever.
Yeah, that's right.
Unbelievable.
It is. It's unbelievable, and unbelievable that Taryn at 90, 95 kilos was able to be competitive against somebody of Brett's raw strength and caliber as an arm wrestler. And really exciting to see Brett Coots back into the mix as well. You know, just amazing. And that wasn't all for Brett, because Brett was then on the table very shortly thereafter. Now, Brett did strain his pec or maybe even tore it. He felt it go, and Taryn felt it through the table and through his hand as well. And so when Brett did return to the table, he had a little bit of ice on it, but not a big break. No. And then, of course, he's up against the Axeman, Bowen Quintado, the wood chopping champion of the country, 6'5", 23 years old. That's who he's up against next. And almost another superhuman competitor, and that was on left hand.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so it was the very last surge of Taryn's match with Brett and Taryn, just to get that last little inch, and you see Brett really go for it, and then it's like, and then that's when he's done the injury. It's like, there was the last little bit. So it was really unfortunate that it happened. But yeah, so he walked away with the 4-0 win over Taryn Broad. But yeah, like you said, I think it was maybe 15 minutes later, he's back on the table against not an easy opponent. I mean, one of the best guys on left arm in the country in Bowen Quintado, and somebody who is fiery and vicious and bounces on your arm, and he's aggressive and throws himself into it. Yeah, and it's like that's your opponent now, that even though you're injured.
and also in Brett's reflection was that Taryn was a little bit tougher than what he was actually expecting. And so and then he's got this little tear, but he could have just as easily, we would have understood if Brett had just said, look guys, I don't want to risk it, because it only not long had an injury on his pec as well, and he's been a bit twingy, and I think he injured himself at AWE T Series 1, and had previously just recovered from another injury. So he's had a little series of mishaps and just niggles and stuff. You know what it's like. You get that little thing, and then all of a sudden something else goes, and he's kind of gone through that over recent times, and we would have completely understood. He said, "Look, guys, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to have myself a beer and take my shirt off." off and just let people admire me for a little while. I can,
When he did that, the amount of women that suddenly appeared from the bar. Oh, well, arm wrestling. Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, I'm interested in this sport. Yeah. But Brett got straight on the table, and as you said, Bowen does bounce around a lot, and it would not have been easy because even though it was with the other hand that Brett was arm wrestling with, he's still got to hold on to that peg. And when you've got somebody just 6'5" human being just throwing everything they absolutely have and bouncing around like Bowen does, it's. I just don't know how he didn't injure himself worse than what he did in the end. So
I think he did actually.
Okay, so he did injure himself. But, was it bad in the end?
So so this was the story of the match. This is the fun part about what happened. So it was Brett has he's sustained that injury. He's going into the match with Bowen anyway, regardless, which is phenomenal that he's done that. And Bowen's, very fired up, ready to go. He wants this match. He's been training for it. And they've had their get-go. They had a slip on their first round. They get strapped together and they go. And Bowen wins the center, and he's got Brett's wrist completely flopped back, like completely.
Yeah.
And he's driving with everything. He's screaming on his way to the pad. And he's about
Brett's looking into the middle distance at this
Brett's
stage.
like, I wonder what did I set my DVD recorder or iron?
Did I turn it on before I left Melbourne?
Forgot the plane tickets.
Yeah.
And Bowen has gotten Brett's hand about half an inch from the pin.
Yeah.
Brett's like this completely, and he's holding in that position. And then I don't know how the hell he did this. He's wrenched it back to the middle with his bicep, and then he's got his shoulder behind it, and he's driven through and pressed through for a win, which is just
so impressive.
You could almost say that I don't think that I've seen anybody do that ever.
Yeah, and it was after, and the other rounds kind of looked pretty similar to that. That they kind of set things up. But it was Bowen getting off center and getting into the dominant position, and even getting within an inch or so of the pad in a press, and putting his entire body weight there. And somehow Brett has that enough strength in his bicep to hold it calmly and wait for the presser to tire, and then I feel like I got something now, and then just pull. But it wasn't like he flopped. Yeah. But it wasn't like when he pulled, it was pulling low. He pulled high, high and through the arc, and that's how he did it. So it was almost like just side pressure from a flop an inch away from the pad. I've never seen anything like it, So and I'm sure it would have been a real surprise to Bowen as well, because but when Bowen gets people in those positions, he's seconds away from victory.
Yes.
Ordinarily, and with a normal human being, you would be. But Brett Coots is made of different stuff, as we're learning. So even injured, he was able to pull out a move like that, which was just extraordinary.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it was after the second round of doing that. So he finished every round. They pretty much were carbon copies of each other. In one of them, Bowen was sort of sitting in a top roll. Brett was able to sort of pull back through. In the other ones, he did get in for that press position, but Brett was able to pull back through. But yeah, I think after the second round, you can see it in the video there that Brett said to Ryan, I think I've done my left pec now as well. And then so they've done the third round, which Brett won. And again, it was a crazy war, and he's had to get behind it and really push. And straight after he got the pin, Brett said, "Look, mate, that's it. I'm done. They're both. This one's torn, and this one's on its way."
And in a beautiful act of sportsmanship, offered Bowen the draw and said, "Look, I'm just not going to do the fourth round, and it's 1-4. So if you want to call it a draw," and Bowen said, "No, sure win. You won that." So and they shook hands, and Brett walked away with the chocolates.
Unbelievable! What a match, and the camaraderie there and the sportsmanship between both guys. Yeah, you never want to see your opponent injured, and Bowen said, "Well, completely understood. Hey, if you're hurt, don't keep going."
No.
There's nothing in it to just hurt yourself worse.
Yeah.
And you've won 3-0. We'll call it that, and we'll move on. So so Brett Coos walking away with a 4-0 win over Taryn Broad and a 3-0 win over Bowen Cantado.
And a little backstory to Bowen Cantado's journey to AWET Series 2 was that he was actually on the news
Was he?
the night before. I don't know if you saw this.
No,
He
I
was
didn't
on the
see this.
Sydney Channel 7 News. So as Bowen was making his journey to the airport via train, somebody, I don't want to say Engen, but
Was there a snowmobile around the area?
there was one reported sighted leaving after towing a trailer, but there was a trailer left on the train tracks. Apparently, this had happened at a few level crossings where somebody had deliberately tried to sabotage that train.
Wow.
So I don't know if well, you'd imagine it was specifically that train because they put a trailer out there and there was a trailer further down the line. So in case that trailer wasn't enough, and where Bowen lives is in just near the Blue Mountains in Sydney. So for those that aren't familiar, it's about an hour and a half out of the CBD of Sydney, and so he's by far and away the easiest way to go is by rail. So Bowen's gotten up at something like 3:30 in the morning to board this train to go, and he could have taken the earlier train, but he thought, you know what's the point getting there like an hour and a half, 2 hours early? I'll just leave it and enjoy my breakfast. Gets on the next train, halfway there, train hits the trailer, train draws to a halt. Police are on the scene, crime scene investigation. They've locked the train. Bowen can't get out at this stage, and I get a panic phone call, Dave. I don't know what's going on. I think we've hit something. But they're not letting us off the train, and I've been sitting here for 20 minutes now. I think I'm going to miss my flight.
Yeah.
So anyway, it just so happens that there was another couple that were sitting with Bowen who were catching the same flight to Brisbane just by coincidence, and so through them we were able to organise for another flight and get Bowen there on the next flight. So it all worked out well in the end. But if you check out the Channel 7 news from that evening, you'll see a strapping blonde young man stepping off the train. He almost didn't get there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it was in the group chat. You've said the train's hit a thing and he's stuck in the train and he's not going to make the flight. I don't know what's going on. But it was great that he was able to get the next flight, or that there wasn't another flight available, and he was able to make it up there. But it's always those things, when you're running events, that these last minute things happen. You just got to sort of roll with it, and we could have not seen the match regardless if Brett had said, "Look, I'm injured." Imagine
so many variables.
Oh, exactly.
So many variables. You got to
right.
really hope that the planets come into alignment if you're going to run a successful arm wrestling event. That's for sure. And thoroughly enjoyable event. Great turnout. Really well supported, especially given the conditions. We want to thank all the participants, all the athletes that made their way to the event on Australia Day. We know not the most convenient of weekends for a lot of people, as they might have their plans and go away, but we had plenty of Queenslanders willing to dedicate their weekend to the art of arm wrestling. So we want to thank all of the athletes for making their way. Of course, we want to thank Taryn Broad, Bowen Cantado, and of course Brett Coots for participating in the super matches, and of course Brett Coots for walking out victorious. Congratulations to him, as he's now proven to everybody that he's very, very much right back there where he belongs at the top of the tree.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely in that top 10 echelon area, and proving it over and over. And it's so great to see him back, dedicated with arm wrestling again. But, so www.awearmwrestling.com, you'll find all the information about all the athletes, about upcoming events. You can get merchandise there. We've got T-shirts and hats and all sorts of things, and hoodies. And the AWET Series YouTube channel is where you'll find all of the tournament footage.
Yep.
And the AWE Underground is where you will find the super matches. So
Indeed.
Yes.
So if you want to see that match with Brett versus Bowen, and his match with Taryn Broad, then that's where you'll find it on the Underground channel. All the rest you'll see there on T-Series.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy.